Hi guys, Charlie from Monocure 3D. Today we're going to check out the Elegoo MSLA 3D printer. It's the Elegoo Mars Pro 3, very popular printer. Also as an added bonus, I've got the Mercury XS bundle wash and cure machine. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. Okay guys, welcome back. Let's get straight into this. If you have a look inside there, you'll see that it actually is presented as a flat piece. So this is the power cord, coming in a box, very fancy, quite easy to get out to be honest. We'll have a look what's in that toolkit. Looks like we've got the FET film, blue protection sheet, that's interesting, and the user manual. First things first, let's get this plastic off. While we're on the bottom, we can have a look. We've got the 4 rubber feet there, vent, some hex head screws and some smaller screws holding everything inside the printer there. The back of the printer we can straight away see, and the power adapter connection there, and the model number, voltage. I'll spin it back around, pretty standard. The USB at the front, which you know that I am a massive fan of because it's just easy to get to. And a nice big power button there by the looks of it. I quite like the look of this case. We're starting to move away from the really boxy standard look that we started with these printers. It's a lovely case, and pity to get it messy with resin and with sticky gloves, and again still no knob on the top or handle. I know we can 3D print one Elegoo, but guys, for an extra few cents maybe, please just someone give me a handle on one of these things. Worm screw's not attached, it's always good to see. Here we've got the standard Elegoo style build plate. Now, to be honest with you, I mentioned with the Saturn, I'm not a fan of this ball joint, and especially on the larger format printers. Yes, there's locking screws here, and yes, you need to tighten them very, very hard, but even so, if you've got a print that's really stuck on this, and maybe not so much for the smaller build plate, but especially the larger Saturn one, if you've got a print stuck on there and you're using a sharp-edged spatula and a hammer, you can easily bend that. And not, when I say bend it, just shift it out of its place, and then you've got to re-level. This is the vat. The vat's made from feeling it there. It's obviously metal's usually a bit colder. It's definitely an aluminium. I'm not a fan of screws that don't stay with the vat. I mean, the advantage is if you do submerge the vat to clean it in your Resinaway bath, the screws aren't going to get Resinaway on them, but I just find you can lose them. Anyway, standard vat, it's got your max level there, and they've got the protective film on that, obviously needs to be removed. So let's take that off now. If you have a look at here, there's another step here. Please remove this protective film, okay? So same idea, that just needs to come off. It's another protective film. This rail they're using now is pretty rock solid. We rarely see movement. The worm screw is really just to drive it up and down now. The rigidity and the strength and the straightness is coming from this Z rail and this mechanism here, and it seems to work well. They come with a little bit of grease on them. Probably not a bad idea to use a bit of lithium grease. I think it's a good one to use, the white one in a spray can every now and then, just to keep that lubricated. It's come with this USB here again. Now this, I'm pretty sure, is going to be for the filter. Let's have a look what they give you. It's going to be pretty standard. Allen keys, a few spare bolts and nuts and screws. Plastic scraper, we all know that's for in the vat. It's really good for mixing the resin if any pigments have separated out, so they're always handy. It's good of Elegoo to put these in. You can never get enough of them. They don't last forever. They're not the most expensive pair of snips. The power adapter, standard AC adapter, standard paper filters. These are obviously really good for putting the resin back in the bottle. That's going to capture anything that's going to cause any problems. A few pairs of gloves in there, that's always good. We've got the scraper here, the metal scraper with the tapered edge. That's very, very handy getting the parts off the build plate. Okay, now we have the filter. So this is the Elegoo answer to resin odours with the printing. I haven't seen much feedback on these, to be honest, in regards to how well they work. It's hard for us. We use a lot of printers in our print lab, and there's resin everywhere. We're a resin factory, so we're kind of used to it. If this filter's doing anything, I'm not really sure. I remember on the last one, I didn't actually do this. Someone mentioned it in the comments below, so if that was you, thank you. But this is a carbon block, and so this, apparently it goes in back in here without the plastic on it, and then that goes on there. Now, whatever this is doing with the carbon and this fan, obviously drawing the odours through, and it's cleaning the air. So that just sits in there like that. Couple of masks, not so good for resin odours, but Good for sanding if you're going to do any sanding or anything like that. And the trusty USB. Now on the USB stick, we'll have a look at this in a minute. These USB sticks are great, but it's probably not a bad idea to replace them because they do fail. Just a name brand is probably better than these sort of cheaper Chinese ones. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to jump down here on the laptop. I've just put it in the USB that came with it. It's called No Name. The testing model that I thought would be on there it's the Rook Mars 3 STL. Also then I looked at the slicing. We've got a Windows, Mac and Linux, which is pretty cool, but it actually just uses Chitubox. So I obviously have Chitubox. I got version 1.9.2. What we're going to do is we're going to load this printer. So we just go down to settings here and we find the printer. So we just go to add a new printer. We go down to here to Elegoo, we find it. So we know we're on the Mars Pro 3, or the 3 Pro I should say. We hit OK. Now that's going to put it down the bottom. You'll see there it's highlighted in blue, and it's going to give you all the settings. The one thing it's not going to give you is the settings for the resin. So we go to the print settings, and here now you know that you can get these from our website. Just fill in what you can from here. The best thing to do always, as we say in all our documentation and our videos, is to do a calibration model. Calibration model is going to give you the best idea of which way you need to go with these settings. I'm going to put that one to 4. I'm going to leave the layer height at 50 micron or 0.050 millimeters. Exposure time, it's set to 2.5. I'm going to print with the TUFF grey. I'm going to put that to 2 seconds as a starting point to see bottom exposure. I always like to go 10 times the normal exposure for the bottom exposure, so 20 seconds for that. Transition layer count, look, to be honest, for the calibration model you can get away with 5, but I've always set that to 10. That's transitioning from 20 seconds to 2 seconds over those 10 layers. It's going to do the first 4 as your full 20 seconds, and then it's going to start transitioning, and that's a really good way not to get layer separation in the models. Transition type we'll leave as linear. Wait mode during printing, I always change this to resting time, and I like to put rest time before lift at 1 second. The others I leave as 0. That basically means the light goes out and then it starts to lift after 1 second. So it's not lifting straight away as it stopped printing, and that just gives it a little bit of a chance for the resin and the FEP to cool down before it starts to lift. You can even put that to 2 seconds if you're getting too much peeling or for a large model that you're having issues with. Lift distance is a problem with larger printers. The smaller printers you can probably leave at 5. So, you know, on the safe side, let's put this one to 6 mil. That's a bottom lift, 6. The lifting speed, I'm going to leave that as Elegoo has suggested. They can stay as they are. That should be pretty well right to go now. I'm going to close the settings. I'm going to bring in my calibration model. So I brought in my calibration model. You can see that it's positioned it like that. I usually rotate it around. So I'm going to use this blue ring and rotate it to be 90 degrees. That way you can obviously as well hit that and type in 90 or minus 90. So never use this calibration model with supports, as you know. It doesn't need it, just flat on the build plate. So the next thing we need to do, if we're happy with that, we can just have a quick look at the slider here and see how it's going to look printed. And that looks like everything's as it should be. Definitely just check that bottom layers on the plate. That's super important. Obviously you don't want a gap there. That will cause all sorts of problems. The next thing we're going to do is slice that. I've always been impressed with Chitubox, how quickly it slices. And then save. So let's save it back to the USB stick. So it's a CTB file. We go to the no name drive, and there it is, M3D calibration tapered, save it. And that will start, that's now slicing it and writing the file to the drive. Once that's done, we can get it into the printer. The next thing we need to do is we need to power it up. Obviously using the Chitubox system in here. So you've got the print menu, you've got the tools menu. So this is where you can do your full exposure, setting 0, paint clean where it exposes over a period of time to clean the tank, and a stop button there as well. You've got the manual up and down, so you're going to go back here. System, you've got the language, info, standard sort of stuff. back to home and the print menu without anything in the USB. There won't be anything there, but USB stick will go in there and it should bring up the menu. And we can see there the calibration model that we set up, so we can hit that one. We're not quite ready for that yet, so let's go back out of here, back again, and go into our tools menu. So now we're going to home the device. So we need to lift this up a little bit. So I'm going to go to the manual lift. Okay, and you can see here at the moment it's doing in increments, it's in blue in 10mm increments. It would be great if we had a button here that just took it to the top. I got to sit here and keep hitting this to lift it up enough to get this build plate on. I got this tool out of the toolkit box. This is the one to undo these. So I've just loosened both the X and Y side of this ball joint. That ball joint has got a little spring in it and the whole thing is sort of loose and can twist. So what we need to do now is, you see that this can only go one way onto here. We slide that on, we make sure it's relatively level and we tighten that off. Also make sure that this is tight on here as well. Now if you've watched any of our other videos, you'll know that we're not a fan of paper leveling, and the reason being is that the FEP sheets can be different to paper in thickness, so we just use the FEP sheet. That's a clean vat with the FEP sheet, the films are all off, so to me that's the perfect level. I've had some comments in the past of people saying, oh, this is bad because you're going to damage the FEP. I don't think by leveling you're going to damage the FEP, but obviously make sure there's nothing in the way, there's, it's all clear. You come here and you hit the home button and the printer now will go down. You really got to make sure that that is in a position that it's just going to, when it goes down, it goes into that low position. Okay, now with a ball joint, one of the problems is that you can twist obviously the X and Y, so that's not 100% straight there. I'm going to get that in a position there that I'm happy with, so I'm just going to straighten that off so the X and Y is straight. It's not that such a big deal unless you're really printing edge to edge, but it's better to obviously have things straight. Then I just come in here and I hold it with my two fingers like this, and I just tighten these up. Now I'll tighten them up softly to start with, and the reason being is I don't want to over tighten it yet, and then I'm going to come in, I'm going to give it another tighten a little bit harder. So just pulling it down there, and until just hand tight until it doesn't go anymore is enough. So there you go. To me that's a home build plate. So before we touch resin, we always put gloves on. Ready, 3, 2, 1. Wow, the TUFF grey is always a good one to start with. High tensile strength resin, good grey colour, really easy to see details, perfect for a calibration print. Just give this a little bit of a shake. If you are worried about the bubbles, just get a naked flame and flame over the top. They'll pop them pretty quickly, or even a hair dryer or a heat gun. Just don't let it get too hot. But because it's a UV cured resin, it shouldn't affect it, or just leave it for about 5 minutes. But for calibration prints, a few bubbles on the bottom is not going to cause too many major problems. We're going to go back to the print menu, back home, and we're going to go to print, and we're going to find our file, which is here. So when we hit play, it's going to go down and it's going to start printing. It's going to do the slice file that we set up earlier, and yeah, we'll see how that goes. So best thing we should do next is let's open up the wash and cure machine. Okay, here we go. The wash and cure machine, it's a Mercury XS bundle. I guess XS stands for extra small. The user manual's at the top there. We'll have a look at that in a sec. Looks like we've got handheld UV lamp and safety goggles. Well, there you go. I've never seen that one before. That's quite good actually. So they've put in a little UV cured lamp for obviously curing inside internal things. So when you're hollowing, I know some of you guys like to hollow to save money on resin. To be honest, you'd have to make your hole quite big. If you're doing a 28mm miniature, that's probably not going to be ideal. But for a larger model, it's not a bad idea. So anyway, I've never seen that, it's good. And they've even thrown in some safety glasses, quite nice. I might wear these for the rest of the show. I can't actually see anything. You can see the lights quite brightly here on the YouTube set, but I've lost the camera operators. These are very dark, these glasses. But you know what, I'm sure they do a great job at protecting your eyes from the UV light. I'll probably be wearing these on the beach. See me down at Bondi wearing these, pretty cool. This one's a little bit more awkward to get out than the printer, to be honest. Okay, so that looks like the lid, and there's the base of it. These have been around for a while. We've done reviews of these before. Anycubics, they've got these as well. All the Reality's got them. All the companies now are doing light boxes and wash stations. The wash part of these, which uses this container and a magnetic stirrer at the bottom. They work, but I don't think they're as good as ultrasonic, I'm going to be honest with you. I generally will buy one of these and just use the curing aspect of it. I think they're good for curing, but not so good for washing. We're back to the old square box again, no handle. For a smaller unit, it's a decent sized wash station. You can see there the magnetic stirrer at the bottom. There's the power for it. Now, I did notice that, which I was a little bit concerned about. It looks like we have to do a little bit of construction work here. You can see here, it looks like there's some lenses over the top of the LEDs, and these obviously go here, and they're going to need screwing. And in here, there's some very small pin connectors that they need to be plugged into. So you can tell which is which side, because this side has only got one, and this side's got two, and that one's got two connectors there. So here's the base for the wash machine. So that's obviously got the magnetic stirring, and this is the base for the curing unit. And this is the basket that goes inside the wash station. That's quite good how it's got the handles. So that will just drop in there on top, and then you've got your lid on top of that. So this is for holding 2 build plates. You can put 2 of these smaller ones or 1 large one on there and support it that way for washing going in, which is quite good. There should be 2 power adapters, let's hope. Well, there you go. 1 power adapter, 2 connectors. Quite a distance, so you can have them a bit apart. You can plug this one in first, and that will go there. I felt, as soon as I put that on, I felt the magnet sort of pull down on that. So to turn this on, we press and hold it for 3 seconds, and it should turn on. And then we just turn the knob. So it's going up in 30 seconds increments there. And then obviously when you're ready to go, you press the button again, and it'll start spinning, or not. Doesn't sound too good, does it? So you can see that there's locking up, and it's not actually spinning the thing. Okay, so we've established it needs liquid perhaps, doesn't like being spun dry. I often get asked if Resinaway damages these units. The short answer is no. This plastic, Resinaway doesn't affect it. It's more like this sort of shiny plastic that you can have problems with, but this sort of plastic is fine. So there you go. That's it running with liquid with the Resinaway. It seems a lot happier. That's actually giving quite a good big vortex. That's actually a fair movement of Resinaway in there, and it perhaps would do quite a good job of cleaning your print. So to stop that, you can just hit that button there. Now I think the next thing to do is let's put this cure station together. I have to say this is the first unit I've seen with 2 sets of lights, and actually, if you have a look there, it's got lights underneath too, which I think is really cool for the bottom of the models. I mean, it saves you having to flip them around, so that's an added bonus there. Now, same deal. I reckon you hold it for 3 seconds and it comes on. Okay, you've got the time there, and it's going up in 30-second increments like the other one. And then I'm guessing you just hit it, and there you go. It lights up like a Christmas tree. Very, very slow turning. I have to say, having the 2 separate units is so much better. The Anycubic ones have a button that you press for cure or wash, and the amount of times I've gone to cure and had it on wash, and it spins, and all the models, that you've got 10 models on there, they all go flying off. Pretty frustrating, to be honest. There's no chance of any models falling off this because it's literally going at a snail's pace. But I don't think that's a bad thing. It doesn't need to go fast. And let's just have a look at the stop and start and see if it jerks, because I noticed the Anycubic one can jerk. No, that's very smooth. It's a very smooth start and a very smooth stop. So if you've got something that's balancing there and you know, has potential to fall over, turning that on or off is not going to cause that problem. So that's good. I'm always a fan of only having 405 lights in the cure stations. And the reason being is I feel that the 365 lights can cause problems with yellowing. So I'm reading the manual here, trying to find the specs of the lights in here. It doesn't say it on this side, but this side it talks about the small light that we'll check in a minute, and it says that it's 405. So I'm assuming the lights in here are 405 too. With 365, it's a slightly different color light. So I'm thinking that this is all probably 405 is exactly what you want. So let's plug this one in, and then I've got my very cool glasses on, which I can't really see anything now. And I'm gonna turn that one on. Now that's interesting. I've turned it on and absolutely nothing's happened. Now is that because that's on and it doesn't like to be on at the same time? Oh, it is on. Okay, see, these lights, these glasses are so dark I couldn't even see that it was on. And I can point it directly at it and I can actually see the LED in the bottom of there. See if the camera can pick that up. Yeah, so these glasses definitely work. So you can use that for curing inside of things. Make sure you wear your trusty glasses and they can be on at the same time. The Elegoo Mars Pro 3 has finished the calibration models. Let's have a look how we did. So we take this off. Now have a look at this here. This is always a bit of a problem. This is the resin that splashes on the inside of these cases from the motion of the build plate going up and down. Might mean that we're over curing a bit and it's sticking a little bit too much, but anyway, let's have a look at this model and see. Okay, so we go the bevel side up and we just come in and we just work around. We try and find a spot that feels like it's sort of a little bit, potentially could be a little bit looser. And we just try and get under it like that. There we go. And it just sort of slides off. People are concerned about scratching these build plates. Don't be concerned about that. To be honest, the more scratches they've got in them, the better they work. The only issue is if you're trying to print something flat, you will see the scratches in the back of it, but you can always sand them off. So I'm going to put the model in there. I'm going to press that button there. We'll let it do its thing. Now we can pull this basket up. So you want to be careful not to damage it. I really like this matrix. It tells you a lot. It's very quick to print. It only took around 10 to 15 minutes at 2-second layers. Now I could do a little bit more tweaking with that, but all in all, I'm relatively happy with it. And you're having a look at those arrows. So you've got the 2 arrows here. You're looking at the size of the text. If the arrows are not touching, then it's undercured and you need to increase the layers. If the arrows are touching too much, then it's overcured and you need to decrease the layers, okay? And we might be talking 0.2, 0.1 of a second, so it's a fine line. Just remember, it wants to look like the STL. Have a look at the STL. How does it look? Does it compare? I'm relatively happy with that. That's at 2 seconds, could go to 1.8, 1.6 even. Pat that dry. I always like just to give it a little cure. Now let's just do a test to see if that's gonna work. Now it's not gonna work without the lid on it, as I expected. Which is a good thing because you don't want to be affected by the UV light, and I put the lid on and it's going to start to go. So after it's post-cured for a few minutes, you can run it under some water to get that resin away off, and then you can put it back in. If you want a part to be super strong, especially if you're using the TUFF resin, go at least 30 to 60 minutes and it's really going to increase the tensile strength. It's a unique urethane material, it's super strong. It's perfect for a lot of things. Don't just think of this for industrial use. If you're doing 28mm miniatures, perfect for that. Chest sets, anything you're doing that you want to have a bit of strength in, you know, and a bit of impact resistance as well. This is a really good product. Guys, I really appreciate you watching today. Remember to subscribe to the channel, but most importantly, remember to keep on 3D printing.